Hello and welcome to episode 6 of On the Bench.
If you build aircraft, ships, armour, automotive, science fiction, figures, or space, this is the podcast for you.
In today's show, we'll be talking about building for competitions. What does an award-winning model look like? Also, is the cost of our hobby getting too expensive? As well as that, we have our usual segment, What's New, and also listener mail. And hello everybody, and today I've got Ian and Julian. G'day guys.
G'day Dave, how are you? Hello listeners.
Hello.
What have you guys been up to lately?
I've been working on my BMW R75 with sidecar.
Ooh, very nice.
Myself, just finishing off about 95% done on the Plymouth Superbird. It's coming along quite nicely. Since I got my wheels now, I've got my wheels and tyres, I'm quite happy. It's back on the bench and nearly finished.
Ah, very good. Been buying any kits lately?
Oh, yeah. Bought three more car kits yesterday.
Oh no, he's drunk the Kool-Aid.
That's all right. They'll probably languish in the cupboard for a few years before I get along to them.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
What about you, Julian? What are you up to?
I haven't bought anything new lately.
No, nor have I. I've just been too busy watching some new shows that are out. Having a look at the new Star Trek Discovery series. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it too, Dave.
Yeah.
Done a good job on that one.
I reckon I've done a fantastic job. All right, let's roll into our next segment. What's new? And what's new in the hobby world at the moment? Well, Hasegawa have announced quite a number of releases. First of all, they've got a 1/72nd scale Messerschmitt Bf 109G, which comes in the colours and markings for the Finnish Air Force Aces. This is a limited edition kit.
It means limited edition decals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll still be the old kit, I gather.
Probably more or less. They've also announced a multimedia kit or a multi-kit release. It's got a Panzerkampfwagen 4, 8-ton half-track, 88mm flak gun, and also a little small 1/72nd scale Rommel figure that comes with it as well. So that looks to be interesting for those of you who like building that era. Also, they're producing and I'll probably get this pronunciation wrong, Shimiwa SS2 rescue seaplane in 1/72nd scale. This is one of the last of the large seaplanes that was used. I think it might still actually be in use with the Japanese Air Force. So that is something to keep your eyes open for. Also, the Mitsubishi F2A. This is another limited edition kit, which, like Ian says, probably just a redo of some of their old stuff. They're doing, Ian, this will grab you, a Lamborghini Miura P400, 1/24th scale. This is a Lamborghini back from the mid-70s, which was apparently the perfect blend of on-road and race car. Certainly looks 1970s in its design. They're also doing a DDH Hygiena. This is a 1/48 scale ship of the Japanese destroyer, helicopter destroyers, I should say, which is probably the largest ships they've built since World War II. But why are they doing it in 1/450 scale? I've got to say, why?
It's a crazy scale.
It's
it reminds
a crazy
you of the old helikits.
I know, nobody who builds in 1/450 scale. I mean,
I presume it's the scale so it fits in the box.
well, I don't know, but it would have been a beautiful kit, but for the scale, Hasegawa, listen to what the people want. All right, there's my soapbox. I'll move off from that. They're also doing a BMW 2002 Turbo in 1/24 scale. This is one of the classic BMWs from the 1970s. Beautiful looking little kit, actually. This is a turbocharged 2-litre engine that delivered 170 horsepower to the tyres. And it's got those classic BMW colours from the 70s with the light blue, dark blue, and the red outline. Something I tried to convince Ian to buy a little while ago, but
Not a chance in hell.
I could never get him to buy it. A Mechatro Wego, kind of like a little funny robot thing. I thought it would have been a lot of fun for us to build, but I just couldn't get Ian to actually to go and put his hand in the pocket for one.
You can't get me drunk enough to buy one of those, mate.
Also from Hasegawa, we've got an FA18E F Super Hornet. Again, limited edition, 1/72 scale. As if there aren't enough of them floating around at the moment. They're doing also in 1/72 scale a Mitsubishi Type 96 attack bomber known as the Nell with torpedo. So for those of you who enjoy building in World War II Japanese aircraft, that'll be definitely something for...
I'd just like to see some of these Nells and so forth get out in 48 scale.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? But 1/72 scale, if you've got to get it, well, what else are you going to do if there's nothing around in 1/48 scale?
Well, that's true. And the Braille scale, I love that.
Yeah, Braille scale. Speaking of Braille scale, they're also doing a destroyer, the Asashiro 1/700 scale. The Asashiro is a lead vessel of the class and was one that was exceptionally large for a destroyer, and it was laid down by the Japanese in the interwar period. Equipped with 6 12.7 centimetre guns, but like many Japanese warships of the time, its chief armament came from the torpedoes. So that's it from Hasegawa. Meng Models are announcing the release of their 1/35th scale Panther A. But what's really blowing me away about this is the decals for the Zimmermitt. How's that going to work?
Yeah, you'd want to hope that they're at least really thickly printed.
Well, Meng's saying they've selected 4 of the most popular and hard to replicate Zimmermitt patterns, and they're representing this as a water slide decal. And which, for purchasing a kit, you get 4 decal sheets for 4 different types of Zimmermitt, but I just can't see how it's going to work.
Well, I'm trying to remember which brand it is. There's a decal company out there that does rivets and so forth. So if they're done in the same way as that, where they're quite thick, yeah, you might be able to get away with it.
Yeah,
Either way, you're going to have to paint over the top of them.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, Julian.
I do recall I've seen this concept. I read that it was done like over a decade ago by someone, and then recently it was sort of picked up again. It was actually a little bit of a controversy. I think it was Def Model. They claimed that they created the concept alongside Meng, and then Meng sort of hijacked it, but it turned out to not be the case. It was a bit of a little controversy.
Well, I'd certainly like to see one of these built and see how it actually turns out. Myself, I'm keeping my powder dry until I see one actually built, but I just don't see how it's going to come off. Anyway, on to other news. And, of course, there's the big show in Japan that's going on at the moment, the 57th All Japan Hobby and Model Show. Fine Molds have got a couple of items that they've actually released at the show. They've got a Type A Grumman F14A Tomcat, which is coming out in 1/72nd scale. Just so much information coming out of this show. It's great. Let's see now. Oh, Great Wall Hobby. They've got a couple of new items in 1/48 scale. They're doing an SU35. And looking at the pictures from the show, that looks like it's going to be an absolutely awesome kit to build. Also, they're going to be doing a 1/72nd scale F-15, which would be for the Israeli Air Force by the looks of it. Lots and lots of armour coming out, too much to actually name. The exciting thing that I've seen for those of you who like building science fiction is that Mobius have announced, and they've actually got pictures of the 2001 Space Odyssey spaceship. And this looks absolutely magnificent. It's the scale, I don't know what it is, but when the kit's finished, it's actually going to be 1 metre long. So
It's quite large.
I got no idea where I'd put a kit that long, but I think I just got a bike that looks so damn cool. It looks really, really cool.
1 metre long. Well, I've got the 35th scale coastal U-boat. That's nearly 1 metre long.
And didn't you build the Tamiya 48 scale Lancaster? That's a big one as well.
That's a big one, yeah.
It's not 1 metre long, though.
No, but it's big.
But you haven't even got it at home, have you?
No, I've got it at a friend's place because I've got no room at home. And the worst thing is I've still got a Liberator in 48 scale. I've got a Catalina in 48 scale.
But hang on, I thought I was a mate, so it should be at my place.
Well, you haven't got room for it.
No, I think I'd find room, though, because I've seen that Lancaster you've made, and it's a beauty.
Yeah, it turned out all right.
It did. Also, other exciting news out from the show is Tamiya. They're releasing a 1/48 scale BF109 G6, and they're saying this is a new tool kit.
Well, it'd have to be.
Oh, it'd have to be, certainly. It's got quite a lot of interesting little features in it. One of the features which I think is really cool is it's possible to actually pose it with the engine cowl opening or closed, because it comes with like a little magnet that just you can use that clips the cowling back on again.
Oh, yeah, like they do with their 35th scale kits.
Yeah. So that looks really cool. And looking at some of the pictures of it.
Is it a full engine or just the top part of the engine?
Nah, full engine.
Full engine.
Yep. So it's going to make a wonderful little kit.
What decal schemes?
The decal schemes, it's not really showing me what decal schemes it comes out in, apart from Luftwaffe.
Well, of course, Luftwaffe. Be Luftwaffe, Romanian, Finnish.
What else have we got? In 1/48 scale lineup, there's also a US main battle tank, the M1A2 Abrams, which will be, for those of you who like building modern armour, a new 1/16 scale German Kumpelwagen.
Kumpelwagen.
Yeah, which comes with an Erwin Rommel.
Oh, so it'd have the desert tyres?
Yeah, it's got the desert tyres.
Which are the tyres I used off the BF109s?
Yep, exactly right. And what else is there? Oh, they're also doing a Kugelwagen as against a Kumpelwagen, which is in 1/16 scale. Lots of Ducati motorcycle, 1/12 scale, Ducati 1199S tricolour. Gotta love the sound of a Ducati motorcycle. And also, it looks like a British 1/35th scale anti-tank self-propelled gun known as the Archer, and that is going to be released in December. So that's it from What's New. Have you guys got anything you've seen out on the internet or the interweb?
No, I think it's still being really, things are still coming out of Japan on that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more new announcements coming out. And as I said, I reckon the exciting thing for me is that Mobius 2001 spaceship, that's definitely going to be on my to-buy list.
Is that a Discovery?
I think it was a Discovery. Oh, and also, of course, Airfix, and we've mentioned this before, Airfix have got their 148 scale Hawker Sea Fury, which that'll definitely be going into my stash.
And I know
as
the
it comes
Walrus
out.
has just recently been released too.
Yeah.
That looks like a nice kit.
It looks like a really nice kit, that one.
Yeah, they've really gone leaps and bounds now, Airfix.
Oh, Airfix have lifted their game so much from the old days. We used to be just that soft plastic and used to, pay $2.50 down at the shop and buy one and build it.
In the plastic bag.
In the plastic bag and build it in the afternoon.
There was no interior, you just glued the pilot to a pin.
Oh, I forgot to mention, and Ian, you'll be interested in this, is Edouard new items. They're doing a 148 scale Focke-Wulf 190A profile pack edition.
Yeah, which A?
The A4.
The early A4.
Yeah, in 148 scale. So the profile pack edition will include your photo etched metal parts, paint masks, and decals to build one of 5 different marking options.
As if I didn't have enough 190s in the collection.
Can you ever have enough?
Yeah. It's like P40s, mate.
Yeah, and that's based on the ship name was Discovery.
Yep.
And this looks like an absolutely awesome kit. You've got to go online and have a look at some pictures.
Do they give you the little pods?
No, they don't. Well, not that I can see, but gee, at a metre long.
Open the door, Hal. Don't think so, Dave.
All right, that's it. What's new? Our next segment, we're talking about building for competitions. And we're back, and we're going to be talking about how to build a model for a competition. It's a subject that always gets people fired up. And I guess really when we're talking about building for a competition, it's sort of different from just building from yourself, isn't it, guys?
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Definitely. There's a lot more constraints, and you just got to be a lot more careful. Make sure you have plenty of reference. That's the one thing they love, reference.
Yep. And when you talk about reference, you mean actually, so if you build a kit, you need to have like reference pictures so you can demonstrate what you're building the kit against.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
and be as close as possible. You've got to be so much more careful with filling and seam lines and painting.
Yep.
I mean, you just need to step it up 10 notches.
Oh, absolutely. So just to put some credentials behind this, I've been a winner in the past at a local IPMS show, as has Ian, and I think Julian, you got a commendation as well for a kit.
Yeah, I had just have a go threw something in, and I picked up a commendation this year and last year.
Yep, and Ian, you've certainly judged before in the past.
Yeah, I judged for close to about 10 years. I was judging, and I'll tell you what, if you want to learn how to prepare kits for model comps and what to look out for, is just take a spot of judging for a while.
Yep, and you can definitely see then what the judges are looking for by actually being a judge yourself, can't
Exactly.
you? Yep. In Australia, there's no real dedicated judges as such, though. So
No.
if I think to...
It's all volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I think to like dog shows, for example. Now, in dog shows, you do have people who are dedicated judges and they're actually ranked as a judge. Mm-hmm. So, but in the modelling world, certainly I'm not aware of anything like that. Well, not in Australia, but certainly even overseas, I'd suggest.
Yeah.
It's something that you just have a crack at and put your hand up and say, yeah, I'll do the judging. But having said that, you're not put with somebody else who is also a novice. You generally put with a judge or with somebody who's done judging in the past, aren't you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they try not to get two novices together, because that way you can learn off the person you're judging with.
And as well as that, you don't judge an area in which you're necessarily an expert in either, or what you have a kit model in.
Exactly. That's the one thing. If you have a kit in a specific area, well, you won't be judging in that. That's it. That's in the Australian rules anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Julian.
Yes. I did judge this year. Yeah, this year. And it was a pretty interesting experience.
Yeah, where was that, at Melbourne Model Expo?
Yep.
Yep.
And did it open your eyes up as to help you build better into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. There was lots of... I found it to be quite structured. I actually spoke to someone after the show online, and he also judged, and it was his first time judging the event, and he thought that it was too structured. And we had a bit of a disagreement on that. I thought it was well thought out, the judging system, and he thought it was too rigid.
I find the Melbourne Model Expo, the way they judge there, is very good.
Yeah, I mean...
it's all just a point score.
Yeah, and I like how it's got like recommendations on it gives you for the judges, it gives them guides as to what would give us a high score and what would give a low score,
Yeah, that way you're not sort of like going out there and going, oh, that's a pretty kit, I'll give that first place.
Yeah. Well,
you're actually going into how the construction was put together, you're going in how the paint was, you're going in how close to the actual reference and the real vehicle or figure you're basing it on. And, I think the way they do it at the Melbourne Model Expo, to me personally, I find it quite bulletproof. It's a great system.
Yep. Well, the disagreement that I had is there was a particular model that won, and it drew a bit of criticism, a bit of attention for being heavily pre-shaded.
Right.
And this particular guy felt that it perhaps shouldn't have won because of that.
Right.
And I sort of put forward to him that you can't sort of bring in your own biases on different styles of modelling.
No, that's right.
If you wanted to mark him down for that, you would just sort of put that in the section for how real is it.
Yes.
And the wording on the sheet is, is this something that could pass as the real vehicle from a distance?
Yes.
In which case you might mark it down a little bit. Because, I mean, how much of that pre-shading would you see if it was on a real plane at a distance?
Yeah, well, that's it. And with as you know, with modelling, we all tend to go a little bit overboard with weathering.
Yeah.
When you actually see the real aircraft, like, for example, panel lines. People love accentuating panel lines on aircraft.
Yeah.
You go to an airfield and you stand back looking at an aeroplane to like maybe... So when you're looking at it in the distance, it looks to be 48 scale. You won't see any panel lines at all.
Well, one of the models that I judged, and it came first, it had a lot of dry brushing on it. It was a beautifully built model, but I had to mark it down a little bit on realism. But at the same time, it was still so well built that it just stood head and shoulders above everything else.
Yes.
I guess it's accuracy that comes down to it. So before you actually decide on going into a model show, the best thing to do is actually download what the rules are for that particular competition you're entering.
Yep.
Some of the best guidelines I found when I was doing some research for this was the IPMS USA National Model Contest Guide. And they give some very detailed guides as to what they're going to be looking for in the judging. As well as that, they also go into talking about what qualifies somebody to be a judge as well. So to judge at that level, they're saying you need to hold a current adult membership for the IPMS, which is the International Plastic Model Society. You need to serve your first year as a OJT, on the job training capacity. Generally, you'll be working with a team of experienced national judges. Participate as a judge in at least one national contest every 5 years. Failure to meet that currency requirement means that a judge has to repeat his on-the-job training in order to re-qualify. So It certainly looks like overseas, well, particularly in the US, they're a lot more sort of structured in who can be a judge and who can't be a judge and what you need to do to maintain your judgeship. If
Yes,
that's a word.
yes. Yep.
Of course, you need to be available to spend some time working with modelers who like critiques of the models. And I guess that's really the big thing where you come for a competition, because people will say, well, why didn't I win, or why did this model get up and my model didn't get up? And I think certainly in Australia, from what I've seen from model shows, this is perhaps where we lack a bit in comparison to perhaps overseas, is that the judges aren't necessarily available the next day to go and talk one-on-one.
Well, you also got to look at, for example, Melbourne Model Expo. They usually have in around 600 kits that have to be judged. And when you've got a volunteer basis of a handful of people doing the judging, there's just not enough time.
Yep.
I remember years ago when I first started going to the Melbourne Model Expo, you used to get like a critique at the back of your sheet where they'd let you know where you lost points on.
Yep.
And I remember speaking a few years ago and asking one of the head judges why they didn't do that anymore. And he said, look, have a look how many kits are on the table. He said, usually when you do judging, sometimes they're there till about 11 o'clock at night.
Or even 12 o'clock at night in my case, one time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if they have to write all that critiques out the back of a sheet, they could be there all night and
absolutely.
all morning.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So accuracy is one of the things that, just reading out of the IPMS USA National Model Contest Guide, they talk about accuracy and they say, absolute accuracy is noble but probably unattainable goal. Despite the fact that no scale model is ever 100% accurate, some people urge that models be judged principally on their accuracy. This is a real minefield. While gross inaccuracy is easy to spot in some instances, the situation quickly becomes murky. Past provide things that can lead to unfairness in judging. For example, suppose one aircraft judges spend the better part of 20 years as a crew chief of a particular aircraft. That judge will probably be able to find inaccuracies of one sort or another on every model of that type of aircraft entered in the category. But there's also a real risk that he will unfairly penalise those who entered those models if he judges solely on the basis of accuracy, as he can readily spot their flaws while he may miss inaccuracies in other aircraft types in which he does not have the same level of experience. So I guess this comes down to also talking about subjectiveness, I guess. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, judges are also human as well.
Yep.
While they do look for some real... and we touched on this earlier on, for example, some basic modelling flaws. So I think, Julian, you mentioned seam lines, for example.
Yep.
So if a seam line sort of stands out or hasn't been properly sort of filled, that model is automatically going to be put down to the bottom of the list against another model that has all the seam lines correctly done.
You're going to lose points, definitely.
Absolutely. Then there's the decals that go on.
Yep.
Silvering.
Yes.
And silvering is?
Basically, you're putting decals onto a flat surface.
Yep.
And you're getting air underneath.
Yep. So it's got like a little, well, it looks like a silverfish, I guess.
Yes, exactly,
yep.
yeah.
That's why it's called silvering.
The best way around that is give it a nice glossy clear coat first before you put your decals on.
Yep. So what the judges there are looking for is decals that have been applied that look almost like they've been painted on as against a sticker.
There is a good technique at doing that. I've managed to get that pretty much down pat now.
Yep.
Where I can definitely hide the surround of the decal. A good way around that too is trim your decal back.
Yes.
Trim it back as close as you can.
Yep.
And because you always get a little bit of extra carrier film, and if you just trim that back and then pump it on there, then once you put your decal on, give it a nice couple of good coats of gloss clear, because you always find that decals are always a different gloss medium towards your paint finish. And I used to make that mistake myself, is I put the decals on, then just give it a flat clear coat. Looked great for a few hours, and then once the paint dried off, well, then you got like a different sheen between your matte finish to your decal. Whereas if you put a clear gloss coat over the whole lot, then put a flat clear over the top, the decals, they just blend in. They look like they're painted on.
Look like they're painted on, yeah. Yep. Some people wonder why, if judges aren't a bunch of nitpickers, and why are they using little flashlights and everything, or even magnifying glasses.
Well, at our specific event, the Melbourne Model Expo, the lighting's actually not so good in the venue.
Yeah.
That has these small little blue LEDs up in the ceiling, and it really throws things off. I know we have, they put out these large floodlights that they project up into the ceiling when they do judging, and that does help. But you know, sometimes I'm kind of a believer that you sort of got to play to the conditions, and if the venue that you're going to is not very well lit, you might be better off building a subject that has a lighter sort of color scheme.
Yeah, another thing also with the guys that use the little lights and torches and so forth is that way, especially like doing aircraft, they can see properly inside the cockpits, and that way you can figure out if they've done a good job on the interior of the aircraft or car or tank, whatever, and pick the mistakes.
And down into the air intakes and
correct, yeah,
exhaust nozzles. And
yep, because that's one of the major failings with a lot of model kits is, especially with jets, the intakes, they're usually two parts. And that's a heck of a job to get rid of that seam inside there.
It certainly is.
Unless you want to spend the money and get aftermarket ones.
Also, flashing a torchlight along the side of a model, I'm thinking aircraft and ships in particular, will show up any blemishes in the kit itself that hasn't been taken care of the model.
Yep.
It's much like when you're doing plastering of your house, or for those over in the US, drywalling. So if you want to see if the drywalling's been done properly, you get a torch and just shine it along the side, and it shows up all the imperfections.
Yes.
Well, the same with when you're judging a kit model.
Correct.
It's a quick way to see whether the model is actually taking care to get rid of any sink marks or that type of stuff.
True.
What about weathering? Do we weather? Do we not weather? I guess really it depends on your kit. I'm mainly a shipbuilder, so in shipbuilding there's three different types. There's your waterline, which is in a placing a ship in sort of a water environment. Then there's your museum piece, which is like just a pristine kit with no weathering whatsoever. Or you can have your full hull, where you actually do apply some weathering to sort of, make it look as if it had been just come out of the water, for example. With ships, I'm open either way. I mean, at some point, it'd be a tank or a ship or an aircraft has come directly out of the factory is going to look in pristine condition, is it not?
Yes, and the other thing you got to also realise when it comes to weathering, and the same as people that like to super detail their kits, the more you put onto your kit, the more chance you have of making a mistake and getting pinged by the judges.
And I guess if you're building, when you build your kit and your references are, you're saying, well, this is fresh out of the factory, and you've got photos of, for example, a B-29 being rolled out of the Boeing factory in pristine condition, well then, bang, there's your reference to sort of back up the representation you've actually built, yeah?
Yes, that's true. But you also got to be careful with your references, and especially doing like stuff from the First, Second World Wars, that photography back then wasn't as good as it is now.
No.
And a lot of the stuff you find photos of, you're sort of like taking a guess at times.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like color tones and...
Correct,
you know, I've actually heard it said that a lot of the photographs that were taken on airfields were done using the reconnaissance cameras, gun cameras.
Yep. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And as you know, with a lot of model kits, is every time you do, there's always some new information coming out.
Yep.
You think you've done the correct scheme, and then 6 months, 12 months down the track, new information comes out and says, no, that wasn't that colour. Prime example, the Focke-Wulf D9s from JV44. Originally, they were thought to be black and white striped undersurfaces. And for years, that's how people model them, with the black and white striped undersurfaces. I think it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that someone came across a cache of about, I think, half a dozen photos. And they were red. And it just blew everyone's minds. All these people who go, I thought this was right. I've built the kit, and now I'm finding out the whole bottom is wrong.
Yeah. Yep. As a judge, do you pick up a model, or do you not pick up a model?
Well, if the models are fixed to a base, makes it easier to pick up. You just can't see the detail underneath it. But yeah, picking up a model, yes, I do. I think they still do at Model Expo. They give you gloves.
Yep.
Yep. So they give you gloves, so there's no real worries about damaging a model unless you're a clumsy klutz. But yeah, you need to pick it up so you can actually look at it from different angles.
Because you've got to make sure, and this is, for example, a tank model. It might be the most beautifully modelled kit, and you pick it up underneath,
yep,
and there's been nothing done whatsoever.
That's why I fix mine to bases.
Okay, here's a little trick that's come out from me.
Yeah, you fix it to a base, don't have to worry about it. You have to go too crazy in the underneath.
But still, I think the judges need to be allowed to pick it up. And I was just reading recently online on one of the Facebook pages where people were adamant that the judges shouldn't be picking up models or moving them. Well, you do have to pick them up and move them, even just moving them across the table so that you can sort of, categorise one group from another group.
Well, you got 20 or 30 kits in a category.
Yeah.
The more dangerous thing would be having to lean over all these other built kits.
Yep.
And we've all heard the disaster stories. I remember hearing one story going back to the 80s, back when Melbourne Model Expo was at the old showgrounds, and someone built a Saturn V rocket, one of the really big ones. Like, I'm not sure how tall, but they're pretty huge kit. But the builder hadn't glued the stages together, and one of the judges went to pick it up, and it just came apart.
Oh, no.
And it just went all over all these other kits.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And that's part of it. And a lot of people that, if they complain that, you hear it every year. There's always a kit that gets damaged. But you just got to put up with that.
It's part and parcel.
I've had kits broken at comps, and it's just part of people don't do it deliberately.
No. And you can always say and have a little note written there for judging, and say this particular part of the kit's not glued down.
Correct.
Or whatever. So at least a judge, before he even picks it up and moves it, he's got some indication of what to look out for or be careful for. Yeah. I having done judging, I can't say that I could not honestly 100% judge a model correctly unless I'm able to look underneath it, and to do that 99% of the time, that means I actually have to lift it up and have a look at it.
Yes, especially aircraft and cars and.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yep. Actually, one of the kits that I judged this year, I turned it over and there was this 2mm gap all the way down the middle of it. Ooh. Where the bomb bay was.
Oh no!
And
really,
and he'd filled it with some kind of a filler, but hadn't done a proper job of it, and it looked like the doors were coming apart and like slime was filled inside and it was leaking out like a horror movie or something.
Well, it sounds like someone was rushing to get the kit finished for Expo.
Maybe.
But you got to be careful with fillers. You got to be so careful.
You do.
Like I find I still use it all the time. Tamiya filler. It looks great. 6 months down the track, it's shrunk.
It's shrunk. Yeah.
It's horrible for shrinking. So my preference, if I'm building a kit, like an aircraft kit for a comp, I'll use super glue.
Yep.
Super glue is a filler.
Yep.
Mind you, it's a bugger to sand back, but you're guaranteed it's not going to shrink.
Oh, my new favourite is Loctite 406.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That stuff is
industrial
magic.
Super glue.
About $40 for a bottle, but geez, I tell you, it is the bee's knees.
You got to keep it in the fridge.
I don't.
I do. I keep mine in the fridge because otherwise it dries out.
No, mine's still perfect. I've had it for 2 years now, and it's sitting in the garage. And I pulled it out 6 months ago when I pretended to be a modeller for about 6 hours again, and it was fine.
Yep.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah. There you go.
But it is the bee's knees, especially when you're doing stuff like etch. And you only need a hint of Loctite 406.
Yeah, but you've got to be careful because once that sticks so quick. I find if I'm like applying small etch, I use Gorilla Grip.
Oh yeah, yep.
It dries clear. It and it takes a little bit to dry, so you can manoeuvre it into place.
Yep. No,
because that's always a big worry. Like if you're using 406, like for example, you're putting a instrument fascia in an aircraft, an aftermarket instrument fascia.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you have that dead on first time you stick it, because once it's on there, it ain't ever coming off.
I used the 406 if I've got a complicated fold on some etch, and I'll get it in position and I'll just put a wick of 406 down there and bang, it'll sort of hold it in place. For attaching it to the kit, the etch then I'll use either PVA glue or Gorilla. Yeah, in that case. So the modelling basics. So this is what judges are looking for. So in the construction area, they're looking for no flash, sink, mould or ejection pin marks. Any trademarks or provisions for motorisation have been eliminated. Any openings are blanked off or have the field of vision obstructed. For example, a figure that blocks the view through an armoured vehicle's open hatch, for example. So that prevents a see-through effect or not, unless you've got the proper detail inside. Seams are all filled, if not present on the actual prototype. So if depicting a subject with visible seams, such details should be uniformed and to scale throughout the model.
Speaking of seam lines, for those building Messerschmitt 109s, be careful because they, I think it's either on the top or the bottom of the spine. It might be even on the top of the spine. There is a definite seam line that runs through the actual aircraft.
Absolutely.
Where the two panels are put together.
The correct cross-section of round, cylindrical, oval parts is maintained. Very big on submarines.
Yes.
Modern submarines.
Yes.
All components are appropriately aligned. There's nothing that screams out to a judge if you've got an aircraft and one of the undercarriage legs is slightly twisted or skew. If you could just see it like a mile away. Any clear parts present, i.e. windshields, vision blocks, canopies, should be free of glue marks or scratches, cracks, unless they're part of weathering of the subject.
Yes.
So when you're putting your canopies on, don't use super glue or normal model glue.
Nah, always use Gorilla Grip.
Yep, or PVA equivalent.
I use it to me extra thin.
Yeah.
As long you got to be careful with it. You just use the capillary action and just run it up the side, and it's fine.
And also when you, the one thing, and I sometimes get caught out too, and it's an absolute bugger when you're doing canopies, is you think you've filled it all nicely and it's all airtight, and then you put your spray and you start painting and take your mask off and there's a little bit of fogging in it.
That's the worst.
There's nothing worse than fogging.
Yeah, I remember doing that with me Lancaster.
Oh, no.
Luckily, the whole top canopy was all fogged up. Luckily, I hadn't glued the nose bombardiers glazing on.
Yeah.
So I had to get a little bit of wire and glue a bit of rag on there and then bend the wire and put it through and hook it up inside and polish there, then take it out, bend the wire, polish there. Took about 3 hours just to clean it up. But I learnt my lesson.
That'll teach you. Still on construction, detail removed while filling seams, so removing sinkholes, etc., is restored to a level consistent with the rest of the model.
Yeah, like panel lines.
Yep. Aftermarket parts and kit bashed or scratch-built additions changes should blend in with the rest of the model.
Yes.
And also looking at what is the scope of effort of the project. So how complicated or detailed?
Yeah, I don't think they usually go for that much in the Melbourne show. It's
not in Australia, no, but I think more overseas they certainly do, yeah. So that brings on the painting. So the model surface, once painted, should show no signs of the construction process, such as glue, file or sanding marks, or, here's the big one, fingerprints.
Fingerprints, dust fluff. That's always a bugger.
Yep.
Yeah, plenty of people dig their old kits out of. Oh yeah, I'll just throw that in. You know? It's been sitting on the shelf for 3 years.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, usually it's been sitting on the shelf for a few years. You just got to give it a good wash and a good clean up, and maybe another coat of clear.
Unless can't get that word out. Unless irregularities in the actual subject's finished are being duplicated, the finish should be even and smooth.
Yep.
Exceptions should be documented. That's what they're saying there. If there's something that's glaringly obvious, you should document as to why that's glaringly obvious.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like a prime example would be if someone decided to put in D-Day invasion stripes, and if they did it correctly, where on some aircraft where it's as rough as guts, it'll look absolutely horrid on a model.
Yep.
And a judge would go, it's not even straight. It's all wonky.
But we've all seen those pictures from 1944 where the aircraftman's sort of laying on the wing and he's hand painting on the black and white invasion stripes.
Yeah, I think it's in a Marauder.
I think it was.
This touches on back on references, because if you provide references that are accurate and you
Correct.
haven't done it exactly to those references, then you get marked down.
Yep.
But if you didn't put them in the first place, then you can't be called out on it.
Yep.
It's a very tricky thing.
Yeah, I did with references a similar thing with my Waffenträger. I haven't put it in the comp yet, but all the photos I've got of the Waffenträger, which I think is probably about 8 or 10 photos, and it shows these bits of white paint on the front glacis at the bottom of the front glacis plate. And what I did is I found a good photo of a front-on view, photocopied it, expanded it so it's 1/35th scale, and then traced it. And then cut that out of mask, painted me white on, so the white now, the markings are exactly as they are on the photos. Takes a bit of extra time, but it looks a lot better.
Absolutely. Continuing on with painting, there should be no brush marks, hairs, lint or dust in the finished model.
Yes. Which is a real problem. You especially the car modelers. Like I've seen them on YouTube and so forth, and once they've finished painting the car, it gets put into like a box, a clear box, because that gloss clear, that's like a magnet for lint and dust. And there's nothing worse than laying down a perfect paint job, coming back the next day and noticing there's a few little bits of hair and stuff here and there on it, and it's like, sand it down, paint it again.
There should not be any orange peel or eggshell effect, and no powdering in recessed areas, with exceptions on the actual subject, and again they should be documented.
Yeah, an orange peel, that's mainly just due to bad painting.
Bad airbrushing.
Or using incompatible paints.
Yep.
Enamels that mix with acrylics or vice versa. Sometimes it has that effect.
There should be no differences in sheen of finish or whitening caused by misapplication of final clear coats or glossiness caused by washes.
Yep.
Paint edges that should be sharp are sharp, i.e. framing around the canopies, with no effects or bad masking. Edges that are supposed to be soft or feathered should be in scale and without overspray. That pretty much speaks for itself, I think.
Yep.
Dry brushing should not be apparent as such.
Yes.
So it shouldn't look like it's been dry brushed. Paint colours can vary due to variations from paint batch to paint batch. Different operating environments can change colours in different ways. Paints fade from effects of weather and sunlight, and viewing distance can change the look of virtually any colour.
Yeah, funny you should say that. I remember reading recently about US aircraft during the Pacific campaign. And I think it might have been something I read. Actually, something I read. It was I think it was from Dana Bell, and he was saying that, and it makes a lot of sense because the Australians had the same problem. Is the blues, the tropical sunlight used to affect the blues.
Absolutely.
And so what started off as a nice deep blue would pale out to, I think, to like maybe a purpley colour, or the red would come through.
And, of course, the sun is the biggest sort of that, and salt water as well. On paint.
Yeah, salt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any bare plastic resin that is visible should not be recognised as such, i.e. if the plastic is the correct colour for the model, even if the modeller does not paint the model, he should apply a gloss and or dull coat to make the plastic look painted.
Makes sense.
Yep, fairly straightforward. Last one, the painting, and this is talking about weathering. So weathering is inherently neither good nor bad. When comparing a model with a weathered finish to a model with a pristine finish, the judges will concern themselves with the degree of success achieved by each builder in depicting the intended finish. That's what I was saying, where you get some tanks that can be modelled as pristine coming out of the factory, as against others that are modelled as being in the field for a while. An exception to this is in the diorama categories, where appropriate weathering may be necessary to render the appropriate realism.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where I believe the American judging rules tend to favour no weathering because it's deemed as hiding mistakes.
Yeah, I've heard that before, yeah. people whether to. Hey, I do it.
Yeah, well,
I'll be honest. If there's something that's a bit iffy, I'll weather it there.
and it's in stark contrast to the sort of the European style of judging, where a lot of emphasis is placed on creativity and
The wow factor.
yeah,
Or the Spanish school.
yeah, the Spanish school.
Yeah. I think that's sort of like come and gone now, isn't it? Really, the Spanish school.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think it's still in flavour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely more at home in the armor categories
Yes.
than aircraft.
Yeah.
But yeah, you still
But
see
with especially with weathering, you've got to be realistic with your weathering too.
yes,
Like you got to realise, like when you're building a tank, you've got to think, all right, where's it going to wear? Where are people going to walk on the top of a tank?
yep,
And aircraft. Where you're not going to have scuff marks on wingtips.
True.
yeah. Well, that's the classic one, isn't it? The Japanese Zero with the chipping that's uniformly all over it.
Yes.
Oh, but that was more because of the Japanese didn't use a proper undercoat to adhere the paint. They painted straight on bare metal.
Yep.
Yeah, well, and usually it was on field applications as well.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so that brings us to decals, I guess. Decals should be aligned properly. If the real prototype had anomaly. I can get that.
Anomalies.
Thank you. The modeler should document it. As we mentioned before, there should be no silvering or bubbling of the decal film. Decals should snuggle down around detailed corners smoothly into seams, etc.
Yeah, what I tend to do with decaling is I tend to try and use the least amount of decals in the kit. If I can get away with painting a part, I'll do it. Prime example, I've got to build a lot of Focke-Wulf 190s, and you've got the bands, the multicoloured bands on the tail. I won't use decals, I'll paint them.
Yep.
Same as the stub markings, like the horizontal bar. It's a pain in the ass when you're masking up a 1mm line to do a square, but when it's finished, it blends in. You got no worries about nothing being not properly aligned. You know you've spent your time on it, and it just looks the part.
And also these days, it's just as easy to buy laser cut paint masks as it is to buy decals.
Yeah, and plus you got to be careful. Like some decals are they just won't conform. Prime example, I built a old 1970s Hasegawa P51D Mustang, and the colour scheme I chose, I can't remember what squadron it was, but it was yellow and black checkers on the tail and the rear tail feathers. I went to put the decals on. As soon as I went to try and push it across to put it in position, it just fractured into like 10, 15 pieces. So for the next week, I sat there and I masked up 1 centimetre square, a couple of millimetre squares over the whole thing and painted it. And geez, it come up a treat. I was really happy with it.
Yeah, time and patience.
Time and patience. That's what you got to be prepared. Just don't slap something together. Put your time, put the patience in, and yeah, just put an effort.
Which comes the next part where it says that decals should blend in with the rest of the kit, so it should not to look as if it's been painted on.
Yeah, as I said earlier before, you put your clear coat, your decal, another couple of clear coats.
Yep.
Oh, and also to make sure they're nestled into the panel lines.
Correct, yep.
Yep. And decals should also have the same sheen as the rest of the model unless they are simulating a different type of surface, such as glass window on a brick building, for example.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. One thing you got to, I didn't realise till a couple of years ago, which you'd have to make that note if you, for the judges. For example, if you're doing like an AVG Flying Tigers, the actual leaping tiger was actually a decal that was applied, that was supplied by Walt Disney Company, and that was applied on the field. So that is going to have a totally different sheen to the rest of the camouflage.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, you note that for the judges.
Correct, yeah.
This is why this is done in such a way because of XXXX.
Correct.
Yeah, and those are those are the kinds of things that can get you points in like attention to detail.
Correct, yes.
Yep, absolutely. All right, looks like we're starting to run out of time in this, but we've still got quite a bit to cover. Talking about class-specific basics that we're looking for. I think we might hold that over for the next show, and we can do a part 2 on this.
Yeah, all right.
That sounds like a good idea.
And I can see the clock's running, and I think we're even not going to be able to get time to talk about the cost of modelling, so we might hold that over to the next show as well. But what I am keen to get to is listener mail, and that'll be our next segment. Okay, and we're back with listener mail, and today Stephen from St. Louis, Missouri. G'day, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Steve writes, hello. First, I've been enjoying your podcast. I found it just this past weekend. I've listened to all the available episodes, and I look forward to more being released. Steve's been out of the hobby for a while, but he worked for 6 years at a local hobby shop during his high school and college years. And he mainly built radio-controlled cars and planes, but he did also dabble in trains and rockets. Now that he's married and settling down, he's been thinking of getting back into the hobby as a way to relax and enjoy more time at home. One of the things he'd like to try his hand at, now that he's had more patience and skill, is model building. He says he used to dabble with it in his youth, but he was more easily frustrated at those ages, and I think we can all relate to that when we were younger.
Yeah, plus in our youth, the model kits weren't of the calibre they are now.
Oh, absolutely.
No.
So he likes the idea of getting into the hobby again. However, he's really trying to improve his modelling skills and painting skills. One of the things he was also incredibly impressed with was the way that Scale Modelers was their ability to weather the model beyond the instructions and get a great looking finished product. So Steve is thinking about actually buying a model kit that he can repeatedly do over and over again as a way to gauge his skill growth. It shouldn't be something that can be snapped together or only have a few pieces, as he doesn't want to drive himself crazy right at the gate with too many tiny details. However, he wants something that he won't be bored with on the 5th attempt. So out of the major vehicle types, what do you think he would best do to accomplish this? Ships, cars, armour or aircraft? And do we have a specific kit that we could recommend?
Probably go aircraft. I think probably a good one to start off with, probably the Tamiya P51D Mustang.
Yeah.
The Mustangs, they've got so many different variations of paint schemes, and that way he doesn't have to continue going on the same boring scheme the whole time. He can practice with his olive drab over neutral grey. He can try his hands at natural metal finishes. He can learn how to do weathering on it. There must be hundreds of aftermarket decals he can also get for the P51D Mustang.
Yeah, it's a cheap kit.
It's a cheap kit. It's 48 scale, which means it's not too small. Being Tamiya, it's not overcomplicated to build. It's got quite a low parts count.
And being the same kit type, he'd see the progression of his skills build.
Exactly, and it's an aircraft that everyone's can relate to.
Yep.
So he can sit there and plod along. If he's looking for kits with hardly any parts counts, well, you usually go for those little Hobby Boss 72 scale kits.
Yep. It's definitely aircraft to over armour. It would get pretty tiresome cleaning up all those road wheels over and over and over again.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing like a Sherman, you got one basic paint scheme.
Yeah, that's true
Olive
too.
drab.
Olive drab.
Olive drab.
Olive drab. Olive drab. And we'll throw in the odd Middle Eastern Israeli one with the Israeli sand colour.
Yep.
So it looks like it's a P51 for you, Steve. So
Yeah.
go and have a look at that, and certainly invest in an airbrush, I think, too.
Yeah, well, leave that for a later date. I would probably, if you want to get back into it and not spend too much money, if you want to do hand painting, always go for the camouflage. You're going to get a better finish hand painting with your camouflage than you are going to get with trying to get a natural metal finish trying to hand paint that.
Yeah, but airbrushes are so cheap these days.
Yeah, it's not just the airbrush. You got to buy a compressor.
Yeah, compressors are cheap these days too.
Yeah, I reckon you should definitely go for an airbrush. I mean, you don't have to. You can
But you
start
gotta-
off with a cheap setup.
Yeah, but where are you going to airbrush? That's the other question. I'm not knowing where he lives or what his housing is. He may not have a shed. Airbrushing a shed, I'm always been against.
Yeah, I'm the
because
same.
It's a dirty environment.
Yep.
You need to have like a clean environment for airbrushing. Newly he's married. What's the wife going to think about the smell of paint around the house?
Well, use acrylic so you get away from that.
Acrylics, yes, but even then,
Yep.
Well, if he was gonna go for brush painting straight off the bat, then probably go with Vallejo paint.
Yep.
Because it brushes really, really well.
yep, and it levels out quite well too.
Well, there you go, Steve. There's some suggestions from both Ian and Julian. So maybe have a look at some 148 scale Tamiya P51Ds.
Yeah.
As always, we'd like to hear your feedback, so you can contact us via email at onthebench64@gmail.com. Of course, there's our Facebook page there, so we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any suggestions into the future as to what you want to hear us talk about or review any kits. And again, if you're a manufacturer out there and you'd like us to review a kit, again, drop us a line at onthebench64@gmail.com. We'd certainly quite happily slap a kit together and give a review of it. We'd love to do that. So that's it for today. I think in our next episode, which will be coming up in 2 weeks' time, we're definitely going to go back and finish part 2 about building for model competitions, and also we'll pick up on that other subject that we ran out of time for, I should say, is the hobby getting too expensive. So from me, Dave, that's it. Ian.
Bye, everyone.
And Julian.
So yeah.
Until next show, see you later.